GALP.
Marvelous has changed a lot over the years, especially during COVID, where they've changed their focus as a games publisher. Today, we'll be taking a look at one of these amazing indie titles published by our friends Marvelous Europe, Cuisineer for Switch, PS5, and the Xbox Series. Big shout outs to the legends at Marvelous Europe and Decibel PR for providing early access code for our coverage. Let's jump into our disclaimer. For you new folks, GALP is a weekly gaming discussion podcast under the GALP Podcast Network. We talk about all sorts of games from big AAA titles all the way to awesome indie games, but our forte is Japanese games, so expect that a lot. We can be found anywhere where you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and now on YouTube. Whilst you're there, be sure to give us a 5-star review, and remember, if you want to join in on the fun, then follow us on all of our socials: Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and X, all at GALP Podcasts. Okay, with the disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this game. Did you see what I did there? Yeah, because this game is about food. Anyway, Cuisineer is originally released on PC in November 2023 and is now available on all those consoles that I mentioned previously. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a clue what this game was. I didn't know what it was about. And then I saw that email from Sam and I thought, okay, this is right up my alley. I'm going to give it a go. I've been intrigued by indies recently and I love the stuff that Marvelous publishes. I've always loved the stuff that Marvelous publishes. So I thought, you know what? That's going to be a good choice. And it was. Pursue adventure outside of Pael, wielding your cooking utensils against giant chickens and fire-breathing peppers. When I saw this in the press release, I thought, yeah, this is a game for me. This concept for a game where you combine RPG elements with cooking is not new. We saw it back in the day with Smosh's horrible mobile game, Food Battle RPG, or whatever it was, and more recently with NIS America's Monster Menu, which was a dungeon crawler where you run through a dungeon, defeating enemies and eating them. It was very odd, but it was interesting. And this game does have its quirks, but it's a lot more down to earth and well thought out versus those other games. Upon first boot, I was falling in love with the music and the general aesthetic of the UI. It felt very friendly and welcoming, like the introduction of a new D&D campaign with your buddies. One thing I love is the accessibility in the menus and multiple language support. The game allows you to remap any button, which is great for gamers who use modified controllers and who need that level of support. The game has language support for Cantonese, Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, English, that's British English by the way, German, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, but surprisingly no Italian language option. Not sure why. Another thing that I thought was interesting was difficulty options. There is no hard difficulty at all, but rather a bunch of easy difficulties, cutely named, I will say: unseasoned, bland, mild, and normal. That's the names of the difficulties, by the way. That's how they package them to you. And depending on what you pick, Pom, your main character, takes less damage. If you're playing the game on unseasoned, then you're going to be taking 80% of the damage that you'd normally take. You're able to change difficulty at any time in the game. Just hit that pause menu, changes difficulty, which is really nice. And you can also do the same thing with languages. You don't actually have to go back to the main menu and then switch it out again. You can just on the fly switch, and that's what I've been doing. I've been playing this game partly in English and partly in Japanese, and the reason why is because I'm learning Japanese, as you guys know, and I want to rely on a game where I have to read. There is no voice acting in this game. I mean, there is very minimal voice acting in terms of like grunting sounds and like combat sounds and the like, but there is no cutscenes where there is voices. It's not a bad thing. It gives me an opportunity to kind of practice my Japanese skills. A lot of it is in very simple to understand Japanese, which is great. I do need some help with the kanji every once in a while, but for the most part, I'm understanding the game thoroughly in Japanese. I do switch back to English, just to understand the core game mechanics and whatnot, and tutorials. But yeah, the game's art style is fantastic. Pom is drawn in this amazing anime art style, but has a 3D rendering similar to that of the Skya series or even Monster Menu, actually. In fact, the dungeons are giving me very similar vibes to Monster Menu from the general aesthetic, but that game was a lot darker and the maps are a lot smaller. I like this sort of axonometric view that it's floating, but it lets you peer through objects that are in your way. For example, if Pom walks past a tree, you'll be able to see Pom through that tree. That way, combat is not disturbed. It's a very nice and thoughtful touch. I forgot to mention, I love the fact that this game has British English localization, which is very pretty rare to see nowadays, but I imagine it's because Marvelous and their team are based in London. So that kind of makes sense as to why they would go for, you know, the British style of localization, you know? And it's like I said, it's rare. I like it, all right? Leave me alone. When a game spells the word mum correctly with the letter U, it just makes me feel proud to be British, you know? Does that mean canonically the characters in this game have British accents? I don't know. We'll have to ask the dev team about that. I really don't know. Anyway, we don't have much going for us at the moment, you know, in the UK. You know, tea, that's not even really ours, right? Fish and chips, rain. It gets a bit dull and dreary in the UK, so I'm going to take this as a win for the UK. All right. Anyway, the town of Payel is incredibly vibrant with the town folk and the market stalls and everyone doing their business. It's incredibly relaxing. And one thing I noticed is that everyone is named after food items. What a surprise, right? Even the trader who occasionally comes in, he's not there every day. They kind of switch it out with the tailor and some other characters that you see once in a while, similar to games like Animal Crossing. So you're not going to see this trader all the time. But what I like about him is his name is Tofu, which I think is supposed to be tofu. I'm reading this from the Japanese, so I'm imagining his name is Tofu. And I'm not sure if anyone pointed this out, but Tofu's speech is a bit odd. And I think it might be something that the localization team has missed the mark on. But reading the Japanese text, it doesn't seem to be an issue, as well as German and French. It just seems like the English reads a little bit odd. So that might be something that the dev team or Marvelous can take a look at and work on and improve. But there are many characters in this game that use the same assets. They just have palette swaps. I really can't fault the game for that because it's an indie game after all. It's probably on a small development team. And there is an incredible amount of NPCs when you think about it, because you're going to need NPCs coming in and out of the town, NPCs coming in and out of your restaurant, etc. So there is a lot of NPCs going on there. It would be unreasonable to make each and every one of them 100% unique. It's a very interesting game to say the least. Pom's irresponsible parents have decided to sell their furniture in their restaurant and forget to pay taxes, by the way. That's something that I found out mid-game. I was like, what? They abandoned their responsibility in life and they decide to go on a worldwide cruise. And guess whose job it is to run the restaurant? It's Pom, all right? And her friend Biscotti helps her, cooking dishes as well as foraging items for cooking and getting ingredients in the dungeons. You have access to a bunch of different shops in town that can help you. For example, the carpenter allows you to upgrade the furniture in your restaurant as well as buy new pieces of furniture. The brewery allows you to create mods to your weapons, which can help you during combat, such as add crit rate, add an element on there like fire, ice, etc. And there's even a bubble tea shop that allows you to purchase a bunch of different bubble teas, which are basically items that can be used in dungeons to increase your HP, apply ailments or status effects to enemies. You can also upgrade them as well to increase their desired effects. But honestly, that's not even the main point of the game. This game is basically two games in one, a roguelike RPG and a restaurant simulator. I wouldn't have ever thought that the two could be combined, but it can, and it works really well. You basically enter dungeons, defeating food-based monsters to gain ingredients that can be used in the restaurant, and the restaurant earns you cash, which you can use to upgrade the restaurant at the carpenter or upgrade your equipment at the blacksmith. Better equipment means easier time in the dungeon and therefore faster progression. The further you get in the dungeon, the better ingredients you can acquire. Why do you need better ingredients? You know, better ingredients, better pizza, right? No, let's cut it there. Well, there's no Papa John's references here unless they're paying us. All right, guys. This episode's not sponsored by Papa John's or anything like that. But anyway, better ingredients so you can serve better dishes and make more money. And how can you serve better dishes? Complete quests. More often than not, these side quests require you to make a special dish for an NPC or hand over an ingredient or an item. And in doing these quests, not only do you gain recipes, but you gain an insight into these characters' lives and understand what drives them and what motivates them. It ends up being way deeper than you think. For example, I learned about a character called Olive. Olive is a rabbit who has a lot of things to worry about. She has to worry about impressing her in-laws, whilst at the same time finding a way to encourage her kids to eat their vegetables, while questioning her ability as a mother. This game really speaks to the human condition. These are worries and fears we all have as humans. And oddly enough, I tend to find that it's the indie games that more often than not actually dig deeper into these trails of thought. I never thought I would be caring so much about these characters, but they're just so relatable. It's impressive and genuinely refreshing. I love how cozy the game is, right? There's a real sense of community. You're creating a community through the restaurant. You're helping the community on an individual level through the side quests. Wow, wasn't that an incredible tangent? But a welcome one, right? Let's get back into discussing the core gameplay mechanics. Within the dungeons, you have a normal attack that can be used with various weapons, including gauntlets, a spatula, which is similar to a sword, a meat tenderizer, similar to a great sword, deals a lot of damage, but is slower to use, and a shish kebab, which is basically your spear type weapon, as well as range attacks from throwing plates or egg timer bombs. Mix and match these weapons to your preferred combat style. Personally, for me, I'm all about the meat tenderizer and the egg timer combo. The deadly combo that deals a lot of damage, especially to those bosses. But you gotta time your attacks right, otherwise you're gonna be left vulnerable, as the attacks are very slow in comparison to other weapons. Within the dungeons themselves, there's a slight puzzle as well as parkour elements, using the dash feature to avoid traps in the floor or dash between islands on the map to gain access to the next floor or special chests, etc. You can leave the dungeon at any time using a special amulet. Basically, you press down on the D-pad and you end up doing a spell, which I can only describe as the teleport to Lumbridge in RuneScape. RuneScape fans will know what I'm talking about. And I'm pretty sure that the development team at Brew are RuneScape fans. Similar to the Lumbridge spell, it can be interrupted if you're being attacked, so be sure to take cover, especially from enemies that use projectile attacks. Once you leave the dungeon, it's time to go to sleep. And when you wake up, you can return to the dungeon or start a day of running your restaurant. It's worth noting that you're able to create food for yourself, which you can take with you in the dungeons, especially useful when you're on higher floors and need an HP boost. But why bother making food for yourself when you can make food for others and make cash money? I love arranging the restaurant and thinking about what ingredients I need to sell high value dishes and make the most money I can. In this sense, you can cheese the game a little bit by discarding ingredients that make cheaper dishes and only keeping ingredients that are used to make expensive dishes. Yes, customers will enter your restaurant asking for dishes and then leaving when they can't be served those dishes, but ultimately there's really no penalty or consequence for this. Same thing goes if you don't have enough seats. Also worth noting, how you arrange your tables can make a big difference on how quickly you can serve your customers. In the game, you can serve your customers dishes directly, or they can come and pick up the dish themselves. Picking up is a lot easier on you, especially if you have a lot of customers, and it prevents you from making a mistake by serving a customer the incorrect dish. However, it can take longer because the customer has to walk to get their dish, unless you're smart with how you've laid out your restaurant. I remember a long time ago when I was studying architecture, one of our professors, who sounds like this, he actually sounds like that, was explaining how architecture could be used in restaurants to make money and how it can improve the dining experience. Fun fact, that year at uni, I was designing a bar and restaurant that had a racetrack running through it, and the building itself was also a drive-through, and you kind of raced to get your food. It was kind of cool. And you'd park in the building and eat your food inside your car. So it was almost like your car and was like one with the building. It was weird. That was architecture. That was studying architecture at uni. It was a weird time, but it was really fun. I liked it. Anyway, architecture tangent aside, this professor said the following: "Oh yeah, you know why McDonald's designed spaces like that? With awkward furniture and a lack of play spaces." I can't do this voice. I used to be able to do it. Oh yeah, quirky shapes, oh yeah. Yeah, he used to say quirky shapes a lot. I'm trying to do the voice, guys, okay? You know why McDonald's are designed like that with the awkward furniture and lack of play spaces is because they want customers to dine in and leave quickly. That way they can have a higher footfall and higher profit. I'm sorry I didn't do the voice the whole way through. It actually hurts my vocal cords to do it for a sustained period of time, so I didn't do it. I'm sorry about that. If you want that voice to continue, let me know. I don't think many people have heard that voice before. Yeah, but one of my professors did sound like that. Or maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering things wrong. I took his advice and I did the same thing with my restaurant in the game. I placed chairs and tables very close to the serving area. That way my customers didn't have to walk that far to collect their food. It also meant that I didn't need to serve them. Great way to make money, especially early on in game. Once I upgraded my restaurant a few times, I changed my approach because I had more tables and space, and I needed to split into zones, similar to many restaurants actually nowadays. However, zones is more effective if you have more than one member of staff. And it would be nice in this game if you could hire hire some of the villagers to help you for a small fee. I found myself quickly immersed in the gameplay loop once we got into the restaurant portions, constantly returning to the dungeon to gather ingredients, then back into the restaurant, working towards my next upgrade or recipes were just really fun. I don't think I've had that much fun in a long time. The game can be really tense at times, with boss battles, especially on higher difficulties, but for the most part, it's a pretty chill game. Whilst quote-unquote grinding in the dungeons, I'm listening to some music or a podcast on Spotify, and I just turn off my brain for a bit, especially after a long, laborious day at work. All in all, I really love this game. Genuinely, I loved it in its entirety, from its cute anime art style, exciting gameplay mechanics, and truly engaging characters and story. I recommend this game for everyone, not just fans of simulation games or fans of the cozy kind of Animal Crossing type of games, but also fans of RPGs and just in general. Like, this in theory could be a game that you introduce to someone who's never played games before. I think they would really love it. Or even someone who's never played a roguelike game before, you know? Genuinely, I think it's that versatile that you can get anyone to play this game and they'll love it. And I think they'll fall in love with gaming as a whole. So yeah, pick up Cuisineer. What if I'm pronouncing the name of this game wrong the whole time because of my accent? In all seriousness, pick up this game. You're not going to regret it. And I'd say, yeah, buy it now. It's on Steam, it's on PlayStation, it's on Switch, it's on the Xbox. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Big thanks to Marvelous Europe as well as Decibel PR for providing review code for this fantastic game. And big thanks to Brew for giving us this game and making this game. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week.